Welcome everyone to Goodknits. I'm Sheri and this is Knitting Podcast number 26. Today is a traditional podcast episode. However, I have quite a lot of random stuff to talk about. I only have 3 whips, no finished objects or acquisitions. I also have some knits that I've recently gone back and fixed because they were bothering me. So I want to talk through that a little bit today. I am going to have a whole separate video on it, but I figured because they've been dominating quite a lot of my time over the last 2 weeks, I would just touch on them today. And I also have a couple hibernating whips that I am planning to pull back out. So in order to hold myself accountable, I'm just going to show those today. And then my hope is that by the end of the month, those will be off my needles and officially things that I can wear. I've been trying to film this episode all morning. I woke up at 8:30 today. It's my day off work on Friday. And unfortunately, there is so much construction going on around us right now. I think almost every single apartment complex around us is doing a major renovation. And there was just constant noise. So I was hoping that my noise canceling microphone would cut it out. Unfortunately, it did its best, but it really couldn't. So I have been waiting for the last few hours to see if they would stop. And I think finally they're packing up for the day. And now I can sit down and actually film this. Such a pain when you live in the city and there's just certain things that are out of your control. I haven't had any time to film over the last couple weeks. And I was really looking forward to just sitting down, having my cup of coffee this morning and talking through my knits. But it's fine. It gave me a little bit of time to actually swatch for a new project, take some photos and B-roll for this video. So it wasn't a complete waste of time, just didn't quite go as I expected. So I think today I'm still just going to go ahead and get started with my whips. I was hoping that for this episode, I would have a couple finished objects because I was moving quite quickly on the few whips that I have right now. But I think because I've been bouncing back and forth between all my projects, I haven't really just kind of buckled down and focused on one thing. I have a few things that are very close to being done, but they're not quite there. So that's fine. I'm confident that they will be finished objects for the next episode. The first whip that I want to talk about today is my staple skirt. And this is a pattern by Jeanette Gaudreau, or also known as New Wave Knitting. And you can see that I'm very close to being done. So I believe this is at 41 centimeters right now. I am attempting to knit this to 45. That matches pretty much every other mini skirt that I have in my wardrobe. Sorry, I feel a little bit out of breath because DHL just came to pick up a package for my husband, which I was not aware about. And I had to carry this big box down the stairs for him because my husband is out. Yeah. If I sound a little bit out of breath, that is why. I am knitting this skirt in the Retrosario Rosa Pomar Vovo yarn, and it is in color 07, which is, I think, also known as rose. And actually, it's very close to what I'm wearing today. I am really happy with this yarn. Haven't had as many issues with yarn joins in the middle of balls on the last 2 that I've had, so that's been good. The way that this skirt is worked, I talked about it last episode, but basically it's a tailor-made skirt. So you input all your measurements into the pattern, including what length you want it to be, and then the pattern spits back exactly what you need to knit to. So I'm not knitting any specific size on this. It's really tailored to me. I just did my first kind of official try on today now that it's long enough that I can really see how it's fitting, and it fits perfectly. I'm so happy with it. Really, I mean, I can't recommend this enough if you really want a skirt that is really going to fit you and be exactly what you want in terms of overall shape. The pattern does include the option to do a slit. I'm not a big fan of slits, and because it is a mini skirt, I feel like it's a little bit too scandalous for me. So I've just gone ahead and done a completely straight bottom. You do some increases for the hips, and then now I've just been doing my rounds of decreases here, which has gone pretty quickly. I kind of do this as my nighttime knitting because it's very easy. It's pretty much just entirely stockinette, and then I think every 11th or 12th round I'm doing a decrease. So I'm completely through my decreases now. I have a few more rows to go. I think I'm gonna add 5 to 6 additional rounds just to make sure that it will definitely be long enough when I block it. and then I will do my folded over hem. The way that she calls for the folded over hem in this is you do your rounds, a purl bump, and then your additional rounds on a smaller needle to then fold up, which is pretty typical. But she does it where you bind off very loosely and then fold over and do the hem, like then you sew it down. I think I'm gonna follow more the My Favorite Things Knitwear cami number 9 directions, where I'm gonna put in a lifeline before I actually start my hem. I'll do all my rounds with the purl bump and then the extra on the smaller needle. But then I'm just gonna fold it over and bind off like at the same time as I fold it over. And by adding in that lifeline, hopefully I'll be able to easily tell where those purl bumps are or where that row is that I need to connect to, so that hopefully this lays flat. So I'm gonna do a bit of research on folded hems and see if there's any tips for how to make sure this goes a little bit smoother. If you have any advice, please go ahead and leave that in the comments. Any helpful videos, anything that you found, make sure everything lays flat, there's no puckering, there's nothing weird happening with the hem. I want to try to make this look as polished as possible. And on my cami number 9, I don't think I quite got there. It feels like it flips out a little bit and it has a tiny bit of puckering. So I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible, and at least by adding that lifeline too, I'll save myself that if I need to go back and kind of redo those final rounds, I can easily do that. The only other thing on knit skirts, and I guess knit dresses to some degree, that I'm finding is I purposely did this on a tight gauge so that there would be no see-through material. I really wanted to make sure that everything was held really tightly and that this yarn wouldn't kind of gape at all. But where my, thighs separate, you can kind of see through the skirt a little bit. So even though this is a dark yarn and even though I did it on a tighter gauge, you can still kind of see through the material, and that happened on my Milady's dress as well. And it makes me feel a little bit self-conscious to wear stuff like that. I'm hoping, because obviously it's a fall skirt, I'm probably gonna wear it with a lot of tights, so maybe it's not a big deal, but I am thinking maybe I need to get like a small slip to wear under stuff like this, just to have that extra little layer of fabric. I think if you were knitting this in a chunkier yarn, like something like a dark tweed, or maybe this held with mohair or an additional fabric, you could probably avoid being able to see through it. But at least for me, on the 2 things that I've made now, there is that little bit slight transparency that happens in the middle of your legs. And it kind of, it makes me a little bit aware and self-conscious while I'm wearing it. But I'm really loving, like I did some pictures in this today and took some B-roll video, and I really love how it's fitting and looking, and I think especially paired with black, it looks really, really good. So that's my staple skirt. I definitely plan to knit another one of these. I said last episode I really want a tweed version, and now that I've seen how this is fitting, I'm definitely gonna go ahead and buy yarn for that. So I just need to decide which. Do I wanna make it in the Noro Madara Sake, which I don't know, everybody kind of has now, so maybe I wanna do something a little bit different. Or I'm thinking maybe an Sayer tweed in a slightly darker color. But I do want it to have a little like colorful flecks in it. So also, if there's another tweed that you can think of that would be more of like a DK or worsted weight or like Aran weight, let me know. I definitely want dark, I want slightly colored flecks and heavier gauge also, so it just knits up a little bit quicker. Then the next whip on my list is the Winnie sweater, which is by Woozy by Celine. I showed this last episode. And you can see from my stitch marker, this is my hand-dyed Harmony stitch marker or progress keeper. So that's where I was last episode. I made a bit of progress on the body, but the real progress was in the sleeves. So I actually finished both of my sleeves. I still have my lifeline in here. This is being knit in a size small. I had to size down on needles. So pattern called for 5.5. I knit it on a 5. I am knitting it with the Assayer EcoSoft yarn in the color E4S, and this was kindly gifted by a viewer, Lee, who I sent my Tools to Tea to, and she sent me 6 balls of this, and I'm actually thinking I will be able to get through this entire pattern with just the 6 balls. That is because this pattern calls for a bell sleeve. And I opted not to do the bell sleeve in this case. If I really think about what I wear and what I think suits me and my body, I'm just not sure a bell sleeve is something that I'm going to really want to wear in my wardrobe. I don't think it goes with everything else. It looks beautiful in this pattern, but I figured if I want it to be something wearable for me, I am probably much better off going with a straighter sleeve. In this case, I referenced my Michaela sweater from Goodknits and my Gallant sweater by Kadri, and I looked at the decrease rate because both of them have pretty straight sleeves. So I was like, okay, I know they both have a little bit of decreases, but let's just see how many. And because you started with more stitches on your needles in both cases, I decided to just kind of find my own decrease rate. I opted for, because you, I think, only had 58 stitches on your needle for the size small, I opted to do decreases every 12th round 5 times. So that got me to about here. And then I just knit straight down. So I think this fits quite well on my arm. I didn't want it to be too tight. I did want to give the illusion of it just being straight. And I think I achieved that. It is sitting a little bit high on my wrist right now, but I figure with blocking, it is going to grow. Sleeves, usually you can stretch quite a bit. And worst case, I do have some extra yarn from each sleeve ball, so I could go back in and add a little bit more. But my plan is I'm gonna go back and now finish the body. I'm really hoping I can get through the whole body with the yarn that I have. And then I'm just gonna see if I can get it to the length I want, then block it. And worst case, if I need to, I'll go ahead and buy a 7th ball. But I am thinking, because I took out that bell sleeve, I'm probably going to be able to get away with the 6 balls that I have. That's the hope. This might be a little bit more cropped than I would like it to be, but we're just going to see. Also on the sleeve, I opted not to do the non-curling bind off, so I just was a straight bind off, but I didn't do the non-curling from the neckline, which non-curling. It is curling. I'm hoping that after blocking, this is going to stand straighter. But I figured on the sleeve, because it is already hanging down in the right direction, it wasn't really necessary. I may do that non-curling bind off on the body just because it's a bit more stitches, but I didn't find on the sleeve it was really needed. And I figured too, if it does start curling, I could also just go in and do an I-cord finish, which is maybe my preference, because I find the non-curling bind off on this, it's really hard to see that purl bump to tell where you need to pick up from the row below on the back side. So I don't know if you've ever done a non-curling bind or non-curling round. I guess it's not really a bind off. You are meant to kind of go and pick up a purl bump from the row below, put it onto your needle, and then pull your knit stitch over. And I think it worked well on the neckline, but I do think I definitely was alternating between incorrect rows. And that's probably going to come back and maybe be noticeable after blocking when this potentially does curl like it is right now. I'm pretty happy with the color. I think it works well on me. This pattern has been really, really simple to follow. It's very well written. I highly recommend it. And I just think in general, this has been kind of the perfect mindless knit because it is essentially raglan, you're knitting in the round, it's all stockinette, a little bit of increases. There hasn't really been anything complicated here, and it's exactly what I've needed the last few weeks. It just knits up really fast. This is one project where I thought, oh, I'd probably be done it by now. I think it's been on my needles for 3 weeks or maybe just under that. But because I was kind of also working on my skirt, I wasn't giving this 100% dedication. And then I also had a few projects that I was fixing at the same time. So I've been bouncing between a few things, and I figured the goal here is not to knit as quick as humanly possible. It's just to enjoy it. And I'm enjoying this. So I don't need it to go super fast. I will be very happy when it's done and I can wear it, but it's also not super chilly here yet. So needing a kind of funnel neck warm sweater is not the main goal. One other thing I forgot to mention on this yarn is it's a very unique blend. It is 56% alpaca, 44% organic cotton, 50 grams for 125 meters. And it definitely is very, very soft, as the name says. I am enjoying the way that it's feeling and how it kind of wears, but I don't enjoy the process of knitting with it. I said it last time, this still holds true. It's not the best thing to knit with because there's all these little tiny fibers that stick out of it and they get caught on your needles, and it's just, it definitely makes for a little bit of a frustrating process. But that's fine. I'll probably never work with it again, but I will enjoy the piece that I have out of it. And then my third and final whip right now is going to be one that you may already be aware of if you've been following me on Instagram. If you haven't been, and you've also been watching my podcast for a while, you know that I very adamantly said I am not a sock knitter. I don't enjoy the process. I don't really have any desire to have knitted socks. It's just not my kind of accessory, and I've never really understood the appeal because it's like, I mean, even with gloves, you have to knit this thing, you finish it, you're so excited, and then you have to go knit a whole second object on a small circumference on magic loop, which I don't like. So I've always just kind of avoided socks. I have one pair that has so many mistakes in it, and then I started Sunday socks, which are DK weight last year, I think early last year, and I never even finished them. They're so close. I really should just go in and actually finish that pair. But I just kind of lost interest. And so I swore to myself I was never going to knit socks again until I was cleaning out my yarn stash and I came across the ball of Shawl Zauberball Crazy that I bought at Stephen and Penelope. I want to say like 2022, but it might have been at some point in 2023. I just remember they kind of said, oh, they got this back in stock. I saw it. It was just so pretty and exciting. And I figured at that time, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get into knitting socks. And then wouldn't this make the perfect pair? So I bought it without a plan. And then it was just sitting there for a long time, kind of hidden behind a bunch of other things. And then when I was cleaning up my yarn stash, I came across it and was like, oh, it's so pretty. It's such a shame that it's just sitting there doing nothing right now. So I decided that I would finally use the Curio sock pattern that I have from Andrea Mowry. I bought it years ago when I bought this yarn, and I figured that's what I would make with it. So I'm like, I have everything I need. I also have an extra ball of sock yarn. So this is Filcolana Arvetta Light Truffle from my sweater number 8. At least I'm pretty sure that's what it's from. I don't have a label anymore, but I definitely know it's Filcolana. And so I had everything I needed, and I decided last weekend I just wanted to cast on a small project, and so I did. So this is where I'm at with my Curio sock. This is a toe-up construction. So you start down here with a Turkish cast on, which is my very first time doing that. It was actually pretty easy. Then you do an afterthought heel, which I had never ever heard about. So you add in some additional thread and some lifelines, and then you'll go back later and knit your heel, which is also, I think, maybe what could get me to knit socks, because then you don't have to stop and do this whole heel and then continue knitting, which I really didn't enjoy in my first pair of socks that I finished, my only pair of socks that I finished. In this case, you just get to knit, you do that lifeline round, and then you go up and you finish your sock. and then you come back and do your heel. So it just feels like it's moving a little bit faster. And look at how exciting this yarn is. Like, I am just loving seeing the color change. I do wish that I'd been, well, so there's maybe two things I wish I'd done. I wish I had picked my darker blue Arwetta color that I had in my stash just to kind of offset this ball of yarn a little bit more. And then I do wish I'd been smarter about where I started the ball. It obviously started on this very light brown round, and so it really blends in. But then now that I'm getting into the blues of this yarn, it's just knitting up so much better. So I'm going to try on the second sock to kind of start at exactly the same point so that they do match. I have roughly 5 centimeters left on the stockinette part, and then I have to do 2.5 centimeters of ribbing. And then I think I'll go in and knit the heel to just finish this one up. And then I want to cast on the other one immediately so that I can just try to get these done. I don't want them to linger. I'm actually kind of excited to wear them. I don't know what I'm going to wear them with because I still am struggling to see how knitted socks are going to fit into my life, but I'm willing to give it a chance. And so let's see what happens. And this pattern has just been really easy to follow. So those are the Curio socks, and they are knitting up really fast. I mean, this is less than a week of work. Okay, I say fast, but other people can finish 2 socks in a week. So maybe let's not exaggerate, right? I am knitting them fast for what I would expect myself to knit socks at. Every other pair of socks I've knit or attempted has taken almost a year or not been finished at all. So the fact that I'm almost done 1 sock in less than a week is, I think, a real achievement for me. My goal is to have the socks actually done within the next 2 weeks so that hopefully by the next podcast, these are just off my needles. And I did do a post on Instagram yesterday about this and how much I'm enjoying the yarn. I was just asking if anybody else has ever used this yarn and what you've knit with it. And somebody commented saying they had knit, what was it? I'll insert a picture. I can't remember the exact name of the shawl pattern, but it's one by Stephen West. And this person had knit the shawl in the Zobber ball. And I saw it, immediately looked at the pattern and was like, okay, cool, I am gonna do that. I really wanna work with this yarn again. I have also said in the past, I'm not really a shawl knitter, but I figure I need to give it a chance. Now that I'm knitting socks and kind of enjoying it, maybe I need to rethink my stance on shawls as well. So I immediately went and ordered 2 more balls of the Zobber ball, but in the late autumn color, which is this really like beautiful shifting dark purple and rosy peach kind of color. It looks so pretty. I'd already seen that yarn used on some socks on Ravelry and I got really excited about it. So I was planning to maybe just buy 1 ball and knit socks. But then I figured that would be the perfect yarn color for me for a shawl. So I just need to find a contrasting color now. I don't know what yarn I'm gonna use, but I will find something, just a fingering weight solid color. And I'm gonna cast on a shawl because I figure with the dark dreary days, it's just really nice to knit something with this kind of color and it's so much fun. It's just really making knitting more enjoyable right now. Not that I need any excuse to do more knitting. And maybe I will also knit some more socks in the future. I do find myself now looking at more sock patterns. Never say never, right? That I will knit more socks. Maybe this is the pair that just turns it all around for me. I do also have a bunch of DK weight yarn in my stash that I had intentionally bought for socks last year and then decided I don't like knitting socks, so I'm not going to use it. But maybe I need to also rethink that and come back to, okay, do I find just maybe a different DK weight sock pattern that's not 2x2 rib? Maybe I can just do one that's more textured or stockinette even, so it goes really fast. And now that I also have the Chow mini set, or like the shorties, that might also make knitting DK weight socks a little bit more enjoyable because I can just do it in the round rather than magic loop. I am going to be open to the idea that I might enjoy socks and shawls, and maybe I need to expand my range of knitting for 2025. So I'm putting that out there. Maybe you'll see more stuff like this. Then the next thing I wanted to get into is I mentioned I have been spending some time fixing some knits that were bothering me and that I just really wanted to sit down and finally do something about. I have a few pieces like that. I have filmed a whole separate video on this. I just need to sit down and actually edit this thing together. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here, but because they have been taking up quite a bit of my time over the last couple weeks, I figure it's at least worth touching on because also I'm just excited to have done these things and I want to share that with you guys. So I am just going to briefly touch on this here and then stay tuned because there will be a whole video coming out with the entire process, with all my thoughts, and yes, I hope to get that out in the next week or so. So the first thing I fixed is my Monday sweater, which you've seen this on the podcast a lot. This is one of my favorite sweaters ever. I finished it back in January. But one thing that was really bothering me about it is I knit the sleeves too short. So they were sitting kind of like up here. And it was driving me crazy because every time I wore it, I just felt like I was wearing this kind of shrunken child sweater. I knew it just wasn't a huge amount of work to go in and actually fix it. I decided I was going to do a video on fixing my knits because that would hopefully give me the motivation to actually go do it. And it did. So I actually started with fixing it. What I ended up doing is I inserted lifelines here, another lifeline there, cut a row in the middle, which Suzanne Bryan recommends. I'll link to the video. I knit 7 additional centimeters. You can kind of see where that line is. And then I grafted back the cuff and the sleeve. So that way I would only have to knit stockinette for the additional length. I wouldn't have to go back in, rip out all the rib, work back to the stockinette, knit from there, and then knit the rib again. Because this is, I think, like 10 to 12 centimeters of rib, I really didn't want to have to re-knit it. Yeah, I made the choice to go in and do it the way that I did, separating the 2 pieces. It was not the smoothest process. I'm not going to share it today, but basically adding lifelines in yarn like this where it's mohair and like a rustic yarn together, trying to see what row you are on to add that lifeline is just impossible. So I tried so hard to stay on the right row for these and it just didn't work out. I actually really struggled lengthening these sleeves and I don't know which arm. I have lots of random threads inside and just issues happening, but I don't feel it while I wear it. And I figured I don't want to accidentally like cut a thread that then is going to unravel itself. So I've kind of just left a few things in there looking a bit messy in the hopes that nothing will go wrong here. So that is my Monday sweater. It's by PetiteKnit. I am really happy with it now. I'm already wearing it. Like I already wore it a lot as a sweater, but now that the sleeves are fixed, I find myself just wearing it even more. So this has been done for about a week and a half, and already I've worn it multiple times. I'm really glad that I just invested the time and did that because it's something that bothered me immediately when it came off my needles, and I said I would wait for the season, and so I'm glad I did it. Other piece that I was working on is my weekend slipover V-neck by PetiteKnit, and this is a piece where the color of the yarn, it's beautiful. I really like a camel color, but it just was not working on me, or just not a color I really liked in my wardrobe. I think I just don't really gravitate towards camel so much as a color. And even my husband bought me a beautiful Wandler purse for my birthday last year, and it was in that exact same camel color. It was such a nice purse and I would wear it once in a while, but I just found it wasn't really interchangeable in my wardrobe with all the other things that I have. And so I found it very difficult to actually style. And therefore I decided actually just last week to sell it and put that money towards a new purse in a color that I would be happier with. But anyway, back to the slipover. So I really did not want this to be a camel color anymore, and I figured this would be the perfect project to try dyeing because I wasn't heavily invested in the project itself, and therefore if it didn't work out, I wasn't going to be that upset about it. But if it did work out, maybe it would be a piece that I wear. This is still very damp. It's been blocking for the last few days, but you can already tell this brown is much richer. I think it's more beautiful. I just used RIT dye, which is the bottled dye that you can use like in a bucket. You don't need to do the stovetop method with heat. So it was a fairly easy process. Again, I'll take you through the whole thing in that upcoming video. But overall, this went really smoothly. It didn't turn out quite as dark as I was hoping for. Like, I really wanted a very, very deep, rich brown. I think I'd already doubled the quantity of dye, but maybe I also needed to add in some black. I'm not really sure. If you know how to get a darker, deeper color with RIT dye, let me know. I think maybe there are just some limitations to how dark you can go. Overall though, this is a really pretty brown. I'm gonna see if I wear it more. I think part of the issue with this piece may also be the overall length. I think it's a little bit too long, and I wish I kind of thought about that before dyeing it, because now if I want to go in and shorten it, I think it's just a little bit riskier, because if the dye didn't quite work, I might have camel color show through. I'm gonna try wearing it. I think I could probably wear it with my staple skirt that I am just about to finish. I also have another brown skirt I recently bought. I'm gonna try it with jeans, a white button up underneath. I'm just gonna play around with this and see if I can make it work. And so I guess I would just say to you all as well, if you have knits that are really just bugging you, they didn't turn out exactly as you wanted, you wish that you had done something different, if there's any chance that you can actually easily fix that for yourself, I encourage you to give it a try. It made me also feel a lot more confident as a knitter, because I've never really gone back after I finished a piece and said, okay, I'm gonna go actually do some surgery on that, or dye it, or try to turn it into something that I will actually love. I'm always just like, okay, well, on to the next project. I want to keep working on new things. I don't really want to go back and fix old things, or, you know, hope that I'll be able to get them to a point where I wear them. I do think these changes are going to make a really big difference in how I feel about these projects. And knowing now that I have the confidence to dye something opens up a whole world of possibility, because I have a lot of knits that I don't necessarily love from a color perspective. I want to play around with this more and see what I can do to bring a lot of my old knits to a place where I really end up falling in love with them. You know, challenge yourself and see, is there just maybe one piece in your wardrobe that you want to do something about? Maybe it's small, it's fixing a sleeve, I don't know, it's doing your bind off again, it's dyeing it, whatever it might be. Just maybe find that one piece that it's okay to take a little bit of a risk. If it doesn't work out, you're not going to be devastated about it. Give yourself a shot and see if that works out for you, because yeah, I'm pretty happy that I finally got around to doing this, and it did take some time away from other projects, but I think it was time well invested. And last episode, you guys gave me a lot of great feedback on my Braidy loop. So I had mentioned that that cardigan was just something that in the end I was a little bit disappointed in. The length wasn't quite right, the color, the buttons, the button band, like there's just so many things that were kind of working against me on it. I think partly was how I styled it. I'm definitely just playing around with different things, and you know, I even just wore it over a sports bra the other day, and just having that lower neckline already, I was like, okay, that works much better. So maybe I just need to get a few more like scoop neck tops to wear. But one thing I've already gone in and done is I reblocked this. So I'll insert a picture, but I reblocked it and stretched it widthwise as much as I possibly could. And I got 5 additional centimeters, which now brings it more into the range of the size small. I think I'm 1 centimeter smaller than the pattern said. So at least it doesn't fit like an extra small now. And the sleeves, actually, I pulled them a little bit wider as well. And so I find in general, it's just fitting looser and drapier like I originally imagined it to be. So that's one thing that I've already fixed. The next thing I need to go in and do is with the buttons. You all mentioned the idea of a button shaft, which I had never heard about before. This is the very first like proper button band that I've done. And so basically what that means is you need to add a little bit of height under the button so that it doesn't pull like it is here. And so that makes complete sense that you would need that little bit of additional height so that the button band sits properly over top of the button. I'm gonna go in, cut out the buttons as they are now, add that additional shaft underneath. Somebody had linked me to a Roxanne Robinson video. Roxanne Robinson? Roxanne Richardson? Roxanne. So somebody had linked me to a video. I'll include it in the show notes below. But basically, you just need to like add a toothpick under or something, or even like a little bit of ribbon. And I'm just gonna try and see what I have in the house. Start there. Hope that if I fix the buttons, the band is not gonna be as wavy as it is right now. And if that works, I think probably this cardigan will be fine as it is. If I'm still not happy with it, I think the next thing I will do is take out the button band, re-knit it as a double knit button band, but first probably cut out some length from the cardigan. I don't want to get to that point because I already invested so much time in this piece, and because I'm just not sure if fixing the length is actually going to make me fall in love with it, I'd like to just do simpler changes on this. So I'm hoping the buttons themselves with the additional ease are going to be enough. The other thing I'm not totally happy with on this is the color. I don't think there's ever going to be a case where I fall in love with this specific color, but now seeing the dye process with the RIT dye, I also am not sure what color I would change this into, because what I'm really picturing is like a deep dark Bordeaux, like almost this oxblood color. I think that would be really beautiful with this, but I'm not sure how I would be able to achieve such a deep dark red or green. So any advice on that, how to get that color a lot darker with RIT dye would be great. I'm thinking though, maybe the only option would be using an acid dye like a jacquard and then trying to get the darker color out of that. But I don't have all the accessories that I need right now to be doing stovetop dyeing. And honestly, I just found the RIT process a little bit easier than what I've seen for the acid dyes. So I would like to just try to stick with that. But if it's not possible, if I can only get a really rich color using acid dye, then I'll consider that. But I do think eventually this is probably going to need a dye job. I think ultimately that's the main thing that is going to fix this for me. Keeping the length and everything else the same. I think the color is the biggest. So any tips for that, let me know. Deeper, darker, richer colors is what I would be going for on this. Maybe worst case, dyeing it black, but I feel like then I would really lose all definition of the cables here. So I'll keep you guys posted on how I progress with the Braidy loop. I think this is just going to be an ongoing trial and error kind of thing. My goal is to eventually get it to a place where I really enjoy it, because I don't want to have to frog this whole thing. It is a beautiful cardigan. I also don't really want to give it away, so I want to try to find a way that I can make this into a piece that I personally will wear with the least amount of effort to fix it. Then final section for this video, I have 2 hibernating whips that have been on my needles since late last year and basically around Christmas time. I put them aside because the weather warmed up and I just didn't have any desire to work on them, and I knew I wouldn't need them until this winter, but I always intended to go back to them. So they have been sitting there dormant, waiting for me to finally get around to doing something. And so I'm putting it out to you that I am going to finally finish these projects, and hopefully I will have that done before the end of the month. So the first project is my Berlin scarf by Paulastrickt or Suzanne Muller. This is, I think, 180 centimeters in length. It is a double, or like a I don't know if it'd be called a double knit scarf. It's a scarf that you work in the round so that when you close these edges, it is stockinette on both sides. Super, super easy to knit. It was a perfect mindless knit for last Christmas. But then where I started to lose steam is on all these fringe that it has. I mean, I'm not even that far away from finishing this side, but it was just really tedious. So I need to finish the, I think, 4 or 5 more fringe here. And then I still have this whole side. So Francesca from An Italian Knitter has kind of been holding me accountable to this. She, I think, has finished her scarf now, and she keeps messaging asking if I have picked this up again. And so I'm feeling, okay, I need to actually just get back to this. I do really, really want this scarf. Like, look at how cozy this is. So it's a beautiful, like, retail looking scarf. Really, really want to just get this off my needles. So I may even just sit down tonight or tomorrow and try to wrap this thing up. I am knitting it in the Drops Brushed Alpaca. Don't ask me the color. I don't remember right now. Some sort of taupey brown. It will be on my Ravelry, so you can check there. I'm also really hoping that I wrote down on Ravelry which needles I was using for the fringe, because I know I sized down for the scarf because I didn't have 6 millimeters in a short enough length to knit in the round. I have no idea what I knit the fringe on. So hopefully I took good notes. I am really good now, but I don't know if I was last year. And then the other project that I intend to finish is my Turtle Dove Shawl by Sari Nordlund. So this was, oh, I didn't even finish a row here. I don't know what's happening, but oh God, that's funny. Okay, well, hopefully I also know what row I'm on. But this I started as part of the mystery knit along that she did last Christmas. I bought this yarn on my way back from Canada at the start of December. It is the Gapard Wild and Soft paired with Knitting for Olive. I want to say Wild and Soft is aubergine eggplant, and I believe the Knitting for Olive mohair is Bordeaux. So clearly I really like this dark kind of purple color. And this, the reason I didn't end up finishing it is I made a mistake where I was reading the chart the wrong way and ended up having to frog. I think I'd gotten about a quarter of the way through the kind of increase section, frogged the whole thing, started over. Then I ended up doing that again, but at least not bad enough that I couldn't just tank back. So I did that, fixed my mistake, and then now I'm at the decrease section. But I think basically I did a couple rounds of the decrease, and now I just need to go in and actually finish it up. I also had an issue where my I-cord was really tight, and I originally thought I would have to frog it all over again. I figured out how to fix that. I just had a little thread that I was accidentally carrying up, and that was causing the I-cord dissension. So that's been fixed. I really like the color that I picked for this. I think the pattern is really interesting. It's just a nice little neck scarf. It's a very mini shawl. This is not going to take a long time to finish, especially since I'm decreasing. I just want to go pick it up. Probably again, it's maybe a days of work, and just wrap this up. So those are 2 hibernating projects that I need to get back to. And you know, at this rate, because all of this stuff that I'm talking about is so far along already, my next podcast might just be, here's my 7 finished objects. Well, not quite 7, but it may be heading there. We have a lot of projects. And then with all the noise going on this morning, I ended up swatching for my sweater number 11 light, which I am knitting in the Gapard Pure Lana in the color Oat. So I'm just going to get this into a bath right after this. And then the second, even one of these projects is off my needles, that is getting cast on because I'm really, really dying to have that sweater in my wardrobe. That's everything that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. It was really nice to just have a bit of a chattier episode and take you through kind of everything that I've been doing, working on, thinking about. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and give it a like, leave a comment. It really helps my channel grow. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and turn on bell notifications. I do post podcast episodes every 2 to 3 weeks. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next episode.